Welcome back to Cheddar's Opening Bell. Amtrak telling Congress that it needs $4.8 billion in federal aid to avoid massive layoffs and long-lasting impacts to infrastructure across the country. This as stimulus negotiations continue in Washington. Joining us now to talk about what's at stake is Amtrak President and CEO Bill Flynn. Bill, really good to have you on. What happens if you don't get that money?
So we've been in conversation with the Hill for quite some time now, and as you noted, we put in a request of up to $4.9 billion for our funding in FY21. That's a combination of our $2 billion normal supplemental, plus the additional $3 billion addresses the real shortfall in ridership that we've seen, that our state-supported routes have seen. It addresses payments that we have that are upcoming, of course, due to loans that are outstanding, and it addresses increasing our long distance ridership if long distance service if Congress so directs. If we don't get the supplemental funding that we've requested, we're operating now at about a $2 billion continuing resolution. We're going to have to make some serious choices here in the company that would include reducing the level of service that we offer today, which is already substantially reduced, will affect our workforce. We may have to take additional right-sizing measures or to better reflect what we'll be able to offer and match with customer demand, and also delay necessary capital investments on infrastructure overall to preserve cash.
One of the areas you mentioned, just long distance routes, how might that be impacted? And if you're forced to cut back on some of those long distance routes, do you think you'll be able to eventually reinstate them, or are these potentially changes that might be long term?
So our long distance routes are an essential part of our network. We have three components to the network: our Northeast Corridor, Washington to Boston, state supported routes, so trains that we run on behalf of state departments of transportation, and then our long distance routes, predominantly east-west and certainly a number of north-south routes. Up until the end of September of this year, we ran our full long distance service, which had most of our long distance trains running 7 days a week, in spite of a dramatic drop in ridership. Now, through the month of October, we've implemented changes in the long distance network, and we've gone essentially from a 7-day service to a 3-day service. And that pretty much mirrors the reductions we've seen on the Northeast Corridor and in the state-supported route. There's a lot of focus and attention on our long-distance services because many of the communities that we serve are not well served or not served at all by air, and so our service provides an essential transportation link to these cities across the country. We are in dialogue with Congress about this. We've said that to go back to the full 7-day service, we need something north of $500 million. That's included in that $4.9 billion request that we've asked for. Should we get no additional monies, we're going to have to make some very difficult choices on our long distance services. Some we would retain just because of the level of ridership on those, but others we could reduce even further, more dramatically.
Speaker Pelosi and Steve Mnuchin apparently getting close to some kind of deal. It appears that Senate Republicans might be holding up a bigger stimulus package. From conversations that you have, where do you think that we are in this process? Do you feel like something might pass? Are you optimistic? What is your mood right now?
Well, I think we're pretty much with everyone else in a time of just great uncertainty, and I don't know, we're not getting any signals one way or the other as to whether something will get passed today or not. I'm actually testifying tomorrow at the Senate Commerce Committee, and I'll talk in more detail about Amtrak and our needs and what our near-term outlook is. But at this point, we don't have any indications other than the current continuing resolution that runs through to December 11th.
Okay, so I was going to ask you if there was a drop dead date, because this first stimulus package that ran out weeks ago, the conventional wisdom was that lawmakers were going to pass something right away. Then it was thinking, okay, maybe after the election, and we don't even know when we're going to have results of an election. Is there a date where you're going to have to just start making really tough decisions and cutbacks?
So we have this level of funding through December 11th. As you pointed out, we're not sure what the election results will be and when we might know those final results. And there's uncertainty as to what could happen in a lame duck session. I think if we're coming into the beginning of the new year without any certainty on funding, we're going to have to start making and implementing those difficult choices. We've indicated that in the nearer term, it could affect up to 2,400 of our employees. About 750 of those employees are people who work on our track infrastructure. Those are capital projects for the most part. So if we're delaying capital work, they potentially would be affected. And the other 1,600 or so employees who could be affected are the employees that serve our state routes. So we operate trains on behalf of the states, as I mentioned earlier, and they too are funding for their services are included in our supplemental request. So if we don't get that level of funding, the states are telling us that they're going to likely need to reduce the state services up to 65% of what we're operating now.
What kind of safety measures are you implementing to make sure that it is safe for people to ride on Amtrak?
So we've been engaged in safety of thinking about the safety first of our employees and the safety of our customers really since the pandemic began to manifest itself. And we're fortunate in that we have a full-time medical department and a full-time public health department as well. So early on, of course, we focused on cleaning, enhancing the cleaning protocols. I certainly want to recognize all of our frontline employees who've shown up to work throughout this pandemic. I see that you've got a graphic up there, and that talks about airflow within our trains. And over and above the cleaning, air is fully recirculated in the car, in our rail cars. Every 4 to 5 minutes, we're fully exchanging the air with outside fresh air through the filtering systems that we have, and then air circulates 40 to 50 times within the car. And we're also engaged now in research with several universities who are specifically looking at what other measures we can take to enhance the ride quality and to enhance and reduce the possibility of contracting COVID. And in particular, we're focusing on airflow and changes and enhancements we can make to that as well. We require masks. We have social distancing not only in our stations, but we're only selling up to 50% of the capacity in trains. So you'll see the capacity caps, and we're communicating all that we're doing with our customers through our apps, and have implemented as much a touchless experience as we can in boarding our trains and then on your journey.
And just really quickly, what do you expect in terms of this holiday season in terms of ridership?
So we're preparing for some increase in ridership. The ridership that's come back post-COVID has been family and friends. What we're not seeing are the business travelers in particular. And so we expect an increase in ridership, certainly, for the holidays. We have the ability to respond to that. And at this point, we're gauging what that level of ridership will be, trying to get the insight on bookings, of course, but bookings now are happening much closer to the actual travel date. But we've got the flexibility to respond.
All right. Well, so great to have you on and get your insights. Amtrak President and CEO Bill Flynn, great talking to you this morning.